What's up, guys? Axel Toss here, starting something new. Let me provide some context. I posted a thread somewhere, I forgot where. Looking for League of Legends players that are looking to get into StarCraft 2, but a little bit too intimidated. I want to play some League of Legends, but I'm a little bit intimidated by League of Legends. So here was the plan. I coach some League of Legends noobs, or some League of Legends pros who are noobs in StarCraft 2. I help them get better at StarCraft 2. In return, they play some League with me and we have some fun. That's the idea. This is episode 1, and these are your first 2 victims. These are the players. These are the League of Legends players who've decided to jump into StarCraft 2, give it a shot, and try to improve a little bit. This is currently being live streamed, so if you're watching this on YouTube, check it out live. Twitch.tv/AxelToss. My name is Axel Toss. Both these 2 individuals have muted the stream. They'll be watching this afterwards. That being said, hello, Mr. Aelyph in the bottom right-hand location. Thank you so much for joining me. Hope you're having a lot of fun. And we're going to improve at some StarCraft. You're playing the Blue Terran race in the bottom right, and you're making workers. I'm really proud of you right now. Making workers is the most important thing, and that's what you're doing. Rallying 1 SCV to your ramp to wall off. That's pretty fancy. What's your APM at, bro? Okay, Eriim is up there. Speaking of which, your Protoss player in the top left, the orange Protoss player, is Eriim. How are you doing, my friend? Chrono boosting those probes. Very good indeed. Nice timing so far. You guys are pros. They said they were bad at StarCraft 2, but they're making plenty of workers. Though the first time they don't make a worker, we're going to yell at them. Make a worker. Supply box. That's okay. Make a worker. Make a worker. He can. He can. He can. He's not. Oh, he's not making a worker. First mistake, my friend. Oh, he's going for really quick barracks. I'm uncertain how I feel. Constant worker production is what I'm after. That's what I'm after. That's what I'm all about. How are you doing, Mr. Eriim? How are you doing on workers? Look at this. See, we're kind of seeing how this is already changing a bit. Remember we just saw a second of non-worker production? Eriim already pulling up ahead. But this has to do with Chrono Boost as well. So once the orbital gets out. So nothing crazy. No crazy changes. I'm looking at build orders here. Looking at the build orders, what's our League of Legends player Eriim doing? He's getting the gas. Very standard play. After the gateway. This guy knows what he's doing. Continuing the pro production, look at his APM off the charts, 75 average. I'm impressed. Well done, Mr. Eriim. Hope you're not stream cheating. Awkward pylon location. We're not going to worry about that too much. I'm not sure what the purpose of this is. Typically, you want to keep your gateway powered, so building another pylon here. Like if a Marine SCV all-in comes right now, that pylon's dead, and you're going to lose the game. And you haven't scouted, so it's possible. So typically your second pylon is to reinforce the power on your original units. Other second pylon location, like back here or back here, to hide tech later. But typically most players will add a second pylon to just double power those early structures. It's pretty important. And here we go. Now we're starting to see exactly where we're headed. So 3 barracks on the field before an expansion and taking a gas. So kind of going 2 separate ways. I'm wondering, okay, so this is definitely heavy 1-base play. I'm not going to worry too much about this, even though it's not a standard build. What I'm worried about is worker production. Are you keeping up with your workers? It seems like you are. And are you going to be able to constantly produce out of these barracks? You know, you might have found a build that we have not foreseen. So Tech Lab is done, which means you should be starting one of these upgrades, or else why do you have a Tech Lab out? Or you should be starting a Marauder, a 4th barracks. Okay, so this is very disjointed. You're making these barracks and you're not making anything out of them. That's a pretty big mistake. So when you're going over these builds, you're just kind of wasting time by having these barracks out and they're not really doing much. So when you're going over these builds, make sure that you can constantly produce out of all your stuff. Now right now this isn't a huge deal. You just got to start making those units fairly quickly. Start dropping those mules and start getting that money and start pumping out the Marines. And you're starting Stim, which is pushing this timing pretty far along. And Stim at this point, this is very all-in for obvious reasons. Investing a lot into these barracks, into this Tech Lab, into the Stim. You're going to have to kill your opponent with this. So what's important about this is, if you're going to do something like this, which is fine, I don't care too much, you're going to want to make your timing hit right when Stim is done. And you want non-stop unit production out of these barracks. You also want to be spending your money. Adding on an engineering bay is kind of weird. If it's going for a +1, you're delaying the timing even further. So if this is a defensive turret type thing, I guess I'm okay with it. As long as you're continuing to constantly build units and you hit right when Stim completes. That's the only reason this build will work. Especially considering you're not taking expansion. Also, bringing the SCVs forward is going to be a must. Protoss player, what are you up to, my friend? Okay, warp gate is done. Perfect. So quick note here. Whenever you start Warp Gate, you see how you're floating a lot of money here? Whenever you're floating that much money, you want to get your gases. That, like, it's one of those things where, look at your Nexus, you're 22 out of 24 right now. You want 16 on minerals. I mean, it's fine to have more. It's fine to have a lot. Like, this is a great problem to have. Too many workers. Like, don't let me be the person to tell you to stop building workers. It's not going to happen here. It's absolutely not going to happen here. What is going to happen is, I would like to see more efficiency. When you identify that your money is high, adding on a gas is great. Taking an expansion is great. Transferring workers is fantastic. You want 16 on each. That's like the most efficient, but more optimal, of course, is additional workers on each. And just you want to have the same amount of workers on each mineral line. Okay, in general, we'll rule with adding gateways. Obviously, your first gateway is going to be done before Warp Gate is done. But once your Warp Gate is at 30, that's when you want to add on additional gateways. Because the idea is you want Warp Gate to finish once your gateway's finished. That means that if your gateways are finishing when Warp Gate finishes, you're being as efficient as possible. Because right when the gateways finish, you can make them into Warp Gates and you can make units right away. You're very efficient. So we're seeing our money still float up pretty high. We should have gotten these gas earlier. At this point, your main things are going to be pylons and gateways. Maybe forges. Forges are a great thing to do when you're kind of high on money. Or simply warping in units. Why not? Warping 3 zealots right now. These guys aren't on cooldown. You can do it. So maybe do that to try to get rid of some of your money. It does happen. And now here we're seeing this push. Stim is done, so it's a little bit late. Also getting combat shields and an expansion. So, again, a very disjointed thing. If you'd gotten your command center a bit earlier and then added on the barracks, it would have been a bit better. But I don't mind too much, considering you've been constantly producing units out of your barracks. It's great. You got to keep building workers, though. It's very important. Constant production out of your workers or out of your barracks, and constant production out of your command center. Going to see an engagement here. Marines and Marauders taking out a gateway. Not a lot of units on the field from Eriim. Definitely caught off guard. This is Time Warp. Instead of a Time Warp, a Photon Overcharge is what you absolutely need in this situation. Time Warp does nothing when you don't have any units to actually attack with. So, Photon Overcharge immediately on the Nexus. You want to be spending your money as fast as possible. Make a bunch of Zealots. Chrono Boost your Warp Gates. Get those Immortals out on the field. Defend against the scary pushes that's coming. Meanwhile, Terran player, you need to start making your way towards Medivacs. We need a factory on the field. You got to be able to heal up their units, because if you keep stimming, your units are going to kill themselves, and not on their own accord. You never want to die by taking too many drugs, and that's what happened to the Terran army if they do too much stim and they don't have any Medivacs healing them. So this isn't a gigantic deal, Eriim. It's okay if you lose this natural. Not a big deal. You still have a lot of probes in your main base. You can come back from here, especially considering your tech is great. If you get a Colossus on the field, you're going to be happy. Get a Colossus on the field, you're going to be happy. Your opponent only has a factory, so at this point, you might feel very sad that you lost your natural. But in the long run, you need to identify, okay, he doesn't have any Medivacs. He doesn't have a lot of support for this army. He's not really advancing his tech. His upgrades aren't fantastic. They're decent. But you've got your Colossi out, or you could. There you go, your first Colossus on the way. You're pretty far ahead in tech. You can take this guy off guard. So once that first Colossus gets out, this is a big problem though. Getting supply blocked at this point is probably the worst thing that can ever happen to you. Especially considering he's charging up. At this point, a sentry is great. Force field that ram, keep him away. Also, rebuild your militia corps right away. Oh gosh, this hurts. These Marines and Marauders might kill you, my friend. But little mistakes that we can fix. Big ideas being, spend your money. Oh man, Eriim, I hope you're not upset, because you did perfectly fine this game. You just got caught off guard by a little Marine Marauder timing push. So, basic ideas from this. I don't have the ability to pause. Aelyph, basic ideas for you. Less disjointed of a build. If you're going to do a timing push behind Stim, it's normally better to incorporate Medivacs, because it's very all-in, very risky if you don't wait for Medivacs, because then every time you stim, it can get very dangerous, especially in the current metagame, especially in Heart of the Swarm, when your opponent has a Mothership Core. If Eriim had done a Photon Overcharge on this Nexus at his natural expansion, if he had units on the field, you would have been in a lot of trouble. Fortunately for you, he laid down a pretty worthless Time Warp, and he kind of threw all of his army away. That being said, Eriim, do not be disheartened. Do not be disheartened, my friend. You showed a lot of heart in this game. You showed a lot of good ideas on the basic concepts as far as, okay, when to expand, when to add gateways, when to add tech. All your timings were super clean. I can tell you probably watched a lot of pro matches kind of trying to replicate what they do. A few problems though, oversaturation in your main base. That's a pretty big first world problem though. So don't be sad about that. It's better to make more workers than not enough. Remember that. But being even on both mineral lines so you can optimize your income. Also spending your money. You had a lot of money at the end there. don't be afraid. If you have a lot of money, put down pylons, put down gateways, put down forges, warp in units. There's nothing wrong with having more units on the field. If you had a bunch of units out, you can deal with this. Proceeding tech is fine. Taking gases when you had a lot of minerals, very important. If you're finding yourself continuing to get a lot of minerals, take your second gas a little bit earlier so you can start teching up a little bit faster and you can start optimizing your economy overall. I think that's all I have to say about this game. This concludes episode 1 of teaching the League players how to play StarCraft 2. Coming up next, we got some more League of Legends players playing. Join channel Axel Toss on StarCraft 2. If you're watching on VOD, catch it live so you can participate. See you next time.